It's been over 5 months since Samsung has launched the S22 Ultra, and today I'm going to be honest with you and tell you whether it's still worth considering or not. If you've watched my previous content, you'd know that I came from an iPhone 13 Pro and have been a lifelong Apple user. However, I wanted something new and exciting. Like, I was getting really bored of what I'd had for the last, what feels like forever, and this phone really did it for me. Today, instead of doing an ecosystem video or doing a video about a direct comparison between the two, I wanted to give you an honest, long-term review about my experience with the S22 Ultra. The one thing that I get asked the most about is how the battery life is holding up. And I can happily say that I don't have any issues getting through the day. Now, recently I have been home because of medical reasons, so I'm not at work, and I've always been around a charger. However, I don't find myself charging this phone really all that often, and to be honest, most of the time I end up forgetting about it. Typically, I get about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, which for me is perfect. I typically end the night with about 30%, and that 30% charge can take me all the way up to 11 a.m. if I'm waking up at, let's say, 7:30 or 8. That may not sound like a lot, but remember, I'm not disabling any features like 120 Hz or 5G. I don't have low power mode or anything enabled. So when it comes down to the overall performance of the device, I would say that it's been holding up really well in terms of battery. Now, this is not going to be like an iPhone 13 Pro Max battery, and if you want that like 10-11 hours of screen on time, I would recommend turning on Battery Saver. I've heard from a few of you in the comments below that it actually does really help out if you're trying to preserve the battery life as long as possible. However, for me, I pay for these features like the 120 Hz. I don't really want to go and turn it off. That being said though, if you really do need the extra battery and you don't care about the screen refresh rate and stuff like that, you can squeeze out a very, very good amount out of this phone. I have heard people saying 2-day battery. I've heard people saying 15 hours of screen on time. I don't know how believable that is, but I can see that because using low power mode for even a little bit, if I'm at like 5%, lasts me a very long time. So with that being said, I think the battery of this phone is a non-issue and just a talking point for people to complain about. However, I haven't had experience with the Exynos chip, but from what I've heard from some of you, it's going to be very similar, though I can't prove that because I have the Snapdragon version here and I have no experience with the Exynos phones. One thing that I do want to note is that this phone gets relatively warm while charging, and this isn't a problem or anything, but for me it was kind of alarming in the beginning until I looked it up a little bit. Apparently this phone's power management is actually better than the S21 Ultra, so if you're upgrading from that phone, you'll notice it's relatively cooler. But for me, it was just kind of shocking in the beginning, but it's not a big deal. The phone's fine. It's not going to explode or anything. So in summary, when it comes to the battery, I have zero complaints about it, and it's pretty good. By the way, I just wanted to say thank you for 4,000 subscribers. If you're new to the channel, I would really appreciate it if you like the video, turn on post notifications, and hit subscribe. It really does mean a lot, and it really does benefit the content if you're enjoying it. So thank you for everyone that has done that. I really appreciate it. I can't believe how far we've come in such a short amount of time, and it's just ridiculous. Thank you. It means a lot. One thing that I was extremely concerned about when switching to an Android phone was how reliable or stable is the phone going to be. I guess I just had this association because it was a more open-ended and user-modifiable operating system that it was just going to be more problematic for me when it came to my day-to-day. But that really isn't the case. I've actually had almost zero issues when it comes to the reliability of this phone. And I say almost zero because there have been times where I open Twitter, for example, and the screen refresh rate just drops in half. Now, this is an isolated issue and it seems to only happen with Twitter, so I can't really blame it on the phone. But that's really the only bug that I've experienced so far. And whether that's surprising to you or not, I'm not entirely sure, but I was kind of mind blown when I realized like this is actually a very solid usable phone. And for my day-to-day usage when it comes to things like Discord, emailing, YouTube Shorts, and Twitter, this phone has been holding up really, really well, and I'm happy that it's been extremely reliable. Tie that in with the great battery life like I mentioned, and I have zero issues with this phone when it comes to just being persistent and like something that I can genuinely rely on. Now, if you remember in my last video, I had some complaints, especially about the shutter lag. Now that has actually been fixed in the June update, and from what I can tell, it seems to be completely fine. You're not gonna get a super fast shutter speed like you will on something like a Pixel or an iPhone, but when it comes to burst photos, I honestly think it's perfectly fine, and I'm not sitting there spamming the shutter button anyway. The point about it was just being reliable. Like, sometimes I would take a photo and the shutter would completely halt, and it would just not allow me to take a great photo of something like a moving subject, like my cat, for example. However, now that I've played with it a little bit more, it actually is a lot more reliable, and I haven't really seen that shutter lag, so I just wanted to mention that for people that were concerned about it. On another note though, I made a comment, a very open-ended comment about Spotify not working on the lock screen. With the help of all of you guys, and a lot of criticism, you guys have taught me how to actually fix it. Now, a lot of people were very wrong on what the problem was and were just blaming me for being stupid, which is fine. I understand that if you see something that you have and someone telling you that it doesn't exist, it can be very frustrating. It's just, the problem that I was having was really weird. I had disabled the notifications for Spotify, and although on iPhone disabling notifications doesn't remove the player, it does on here. And I didn't think that that was the problem because I disabled the notifications from day one, so I'd never seen the player before. That being said, it is fixed, and thank you to those that actually helped me with it because it really does mean a lot. I'm really happy that I have the player back. But again, those are like the only two things that I really complained about this phone, and they're both fixed now. So yeah, seems to be pretty good. So in short, I would say when it comes to reliability, you'd have zero issues with using this phone as a daily driver. And to be honest with you, I personally recommend it. I haven't tried the S22 Plus or the S22, but if the phone's experience is anything like this, I would say that you'd have a very reliable, really good phone. And I'm very pleased with what Samsung has done this time around, and I'm really looking forward to the next generation of it. If you were to ask me though what my favorite feature about the S22 Ultra is, I would just tell you straight up, it's the camera. While you aren't getting the largest or fastest sensor, the colors and how the photos are processed within the phone give you a really natural, true-to-life feeling. And in my personal opinion, these photos are some of the best in any smartphone today, excluding things like maybe the Xiaomi 12S. However, when it comes to those 1-inch sensor phones, you can get a great shot just straight out of camera, but it really comes down to the processing. Imagine if a Pixel had a 1-inch sensor, that would be pretty ridiculous. If you did a blind test with the S22 Ultra and an iPhone side by side, I'm sure most people will pick the iPhone. However, that isn't because the image itself is better, it's because the photos are more saturated. And this is the case with a lot of smartphones today. The S22 Ultra gives you sort of a more natural shot and allows for more room for editing if that's something that you'd like to do. I would say the benefit to an iPhone is being a very shareable image, but if you want a photo that's more reliable and is going to give you a really, really good, clean, sharp shot, I would choose this any day. On top of how the image looks, you get a 10 times telephoto, which is a really fun party trick to show your friends. It's actually so good that this phone can be really scary in the wrong person's hands. For example, I live in a condo and the neighboring buildings aren't that far, so if someone really wanted to, they could probably see me through my window talking to my camera looking like a lunatic. And someone probably has, that's weird. All jokes aside though, the camera is extremely well-rounded. However, I'd like to see more optimization when it comes to the app development side of things. This is a very powerful camera. However, once you try to make a quick TikTok or throw up, a Twitter video, it reminds you how damaging Android could be for someone that's trying to grow their social media presence. And I'm not kidding when I say that. It genuinely does hinder the quality by a lot in apps that don't natively use the camera. This is a quick camera test within TikTok. This is like really good lighting conditions because we have that window. So this is probably the best it's gonna be. Honestly, doesn't really look too bad in TikTok, to be honest with you, but we'll compare it to the regular camera right now. And now this is just straight out of the S22 Ultra. It looks a lot better. You can tell that it's a lot sharper, especially when it comes to like my beard and stuff like that. The cat hair, yeah, I don't know. I don't really think it's that much of a competition. I think when it comes to the TikTok or like YouTube shorts and stuff, the quality of video that you're getting just really isn't what the camera is capable of. Not that it's like awfully horrible, but this camera is just a lot better, and it kind of sucks that you can't use that. Like, right, Spencer? Hey? Oh. Now, it's not the end of the world, but if you have any sort of standard when it comes to quality, you're gonna be really let down. Most of the times when it comes to doing a short, I end up just grabbing this camera, which makes the whole process a lot more convoluted, but it's true. It makes me feel a lot better knowing that, the time that I'm spending is going into making a quality video rather than just trying to throw something up shortly with this phone. That being said, of course, you can just use the cameras and record it natively onto the phone and upload it. However, when it comes to editing, like on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, it's not gonna be that simple. Though when it comes to apps like Snapchat and Instagram, they really do have it down when it comes to camera optimization. So if, YouTube Shorts, Twitter, and TikTok don't really matter to you, then you're gonna be fine with this phone. Now, without focusing on any sort of specific category, I'm just gonna run down some things that I really like about this phone, kind of in a quick burst fire rapid mode. I like that you can swipe anywhere to access the quick settings. I like that you can enable a swipe down to enter one-handed mode. I love that you can choose between buttons or gestures for controlling the phone, and you can even go as far as hiding the navigation bar to give yourself extra screen real estate. I'm a huge fan of the S Pen. It's made taking notes so much easier. When it comes to things like shot lists or video ideas, I always use the S Pen, and it's something that I'm very happy I have now. Just by pulling out the S Pen, you can write on the always on display without having to give your phone any attention. That alone is pretty cool. And I've got to really utilize the file manager. When I built my PC, I used it to download network drivers. I plugged in a flash drive and moved the contents over to my computer without having to need to use a laptop or anything. Like, just being able to do it on my phone is so cool. I can also copy any sort of media, like videos that I record on this phone for the YouTube channel, just by taking, a USB-C to SD adapter, putting it on the SD card, and then it's there with all of the other footage that I record on the camera, so when I edit a video, it just makes it so much easier. And I guess that's it. My complaints from the last video have turned into pretty much non-issues. And I personally still really enjoy the phone and look for even more ways I'm able to utilize it. It seems like what I can really do with it is truly never ending, and I'm really glad that it holds up for my use case. So that being said, if you're on the fence, I feel like there's no reason to wait anymore. It's already been long enough. And I think this phone is a really good contender if you're looking for that One UI experience but want a really reliable, awesome phone. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.